Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to just give it a few more minutes, if that's okay. Just another like 3 minutes to allow people to come in. Good to see you, Joe. Sorry you had surgery on your face, so you're off camera. I'm sorry. I hope you feel better, but I'm glad you're here. Hi, Julie.
Hmm.
And this is family. Okay, we're going to be
Yes.
really loose tonight. This is not formal. It's just really about, just us. I don't know if anybody else has watched the news, but I'll talk about that later. But I'm just this is a place to gather. Nurturing Justice is a community of people that are just justice seeking and just trying to learn and grow and form community together to support one another during these difficult times. So please stay connected with us. And I'll show you additional ways a little later on. Um, but what I want to do is I want to get started with, since we are on the very heels of Martin Luther King Day, I thought that I would share this with you.
I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can
Sorry.
have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, men other-centered can build up. I still believe that we shall overcome. This faith can give us courage to face the uncertainties of the future. It will give our tired feet new strength as we continue our forward stride toward the city of freedom. When our days become dreary with low hovering clouds, and our nights become darker than 1,000 midnights, we will know that we are living in the creative turmoil of a genuine civilization, struggling to be born. I have the audacity to believe.
Still today.
Well, welcome, everybody. It is my honor to have you with us tonight and for part two of our community book conversation for this. Just there's no other way to describe this book other than to say it's delicious. Soul Medicine for a Fractured World: Healing, Justice, and the Path of Wholeness. This is a masterpiece. It is, I'm referring to it as a reference book. It is something that you pick up and you can read a few pages and then you have to put it down just to digest it, just to slowly chew it and savor it because it's so important. It is so important for these times that we're living in. And it is my distinct honor and privilege to be in community with Dr. Liza Ranco. It is, just an honor to have her here. We had her in December, and it was one of her first book presentations after the book was published. And, it was, we were all very, you know, uptight and a little bit nervous and, oh, okay, let's, trying to get everything right. And tonight we said, you know what, everybody's tired. It's winter, it's cold, it's this, it's that. And, we're just going to have a family discussion about the book. Hopefully people have read it. If you haven't read it, there'll be passages lifted up. And, we're just going to be together in community and family in these really challenging times. Let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Liza. Dr. Liza Ranco is an interfaith minister, an educator, an activist, and author. Her life work centers the deep healing that is essential to personal and social transformation. Liza is the founder and former executive director of One Life Institute, which for almost 20 years supported the well-being of frontline changemakers. She's been a spiritual counselor and teacher for more than 3 decades, working with individual clients, facilitating healing retreats, offering classes and workshops in a variety of community and academic settings. Liza is the producer and co-editor of this incredible work called The Living Wisdom of Howard Thurman audio collection. And if you don't have that, go on Audible immediately and get it, because I'm telling you, that's another lifesaver. Her new book is Soul Medicine for a Fractured World, Healing, Justice, and the Path of Wholeness. And it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Liza to this, back to this space so that we can have a nice discussion. Now, what we decided to, I'm going to highlight her just for a little while, right? I'll highlight her and myself because I've got a question, and then I want to open it up. Okay. So I made the tremendous mistake of turning on 15 minutes of news this afternoon, Dr. Liza. And as I started to observe myself spiral into fear, disgust, rage, I don't want to say hatred because it wasn't quite that stark. When I caught myself, I'm like, oh, and I turned it immediately off. And I just turned on some music. And, there's almost this thing like, well, how do you not watch? Because you need to know, right? But then how do you deal with it? So my reference book, I was like, okay, there's an answer in here, I know. And I love this on page 10 of the book. At the bottom, it says, we are not helpless bystanders at the mercy of apocalyptic changes. We have a role in the transformation by actively engaging in healing the traumas and injustices of the past and present and living in alignment with our soul's purpose. We help foster a shift in human consciousness so that the best possibilities for our collective life on this planet may be realized. As the social and ecological collapse escalates around us, we are increasingly forced to live into the crucible of wilderness, the mystery of unknowing. Ooh. And so I want to ask, I guess the first question I have is, how do we do this? You say, I can't tell you what page this is, but you say, surviving this passage will require a profound paradigmatic transition, a progression from one way of understanding the world to another. It's like shifting the ideological tectonic plates that underlie the foundation of life in modern mechanistic societies, from domination to collaboration, from modification to reverence, division to oneness. Okay, tell me how. Please give me the formula. Help me breathe.
First, I want to say thank you for convening us and how good it is to be in community with all of you this evening. As Chris said, our December session was a big group and it was more presentational and formal. And tonight we have the luxury of being in a small, intimate group that feels to me like, we are family, we're sitting in a circle and we're having a conversation. And I'm very honored that it's a conversation that emerges from my book, right? Because each of us has some wisdom to bring to this circle. But you just asked a lot of questions.
No.
You like tried to pass it as one question, Chris, but really, there's a whole bunch. So let me start with the question. No, it's fine, because it all connects, but help me if I don't track all of it, right?
Okay.
So the question about the news is one I get a lot, because I think so many of us wrestle with exactly that, especially those of us who lean more towards empaths, but really everybody feels it. Just some folks are more fully impacted in our bodies, in our psyches, in our emotions. We feel, right? We feel what's going on as opposed to just knowing it or hearing about it. And I myself have wrestled a lot with that news question. I was telling Chris before we started, when she said she wanted to lead with that actually since the book's been out fairly recently, like within the last month or so-ish, Spirit dropped a word to me on that I will share with you, that I found very helpful, and maybe it will be helpful for you as well. I'm a counselor, among other things, and a lot of what ends up being the substance of what human beings wrestle with is relationships, right? And how do we be in healthy relationships with one another? And we talk about healthy boundaries, right? And I like to make the distinction between a boundary and a wall. Having a hard time hearing Liza. Is your volume all the way up? Let's see.
My volume's all the way up, and I hear Chris just fine, but your voice is quiet.
Yeah, I'm soft. I'm sorry.
That's better. Yeah.
Let me sit all the way up and I don't think I have the stamina for a preaching voice right now.
No, I hear you better now. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Thanks, Karen. Thank you for letting us know, because if one person's having trouble, I'm sure they're not the only one. But what I was trying to lift up is a distinction that I think is so important between boundaries and walls, right? Walls are just a hard stop. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. There's no room for connection. There's no room for emergence. Boundaries, think back to, what was it, high school science class, where you maybe learned about cells and the cell membrane. It was semi-permeable. It let in things that the cell needed, and it kept out things that the cell didn't need, right? And that what it let in and how much it let in was variable because it was responsive to the conditions within it and around it. So if the cell already had too much of a thing, then it kept out more. If it needed a thing or it was doing well, it could let in more. And what Spirit pointed out to me is that's really a helpful metaphor for our relationship with the news. So there are some days that I'm pretty well inner resourced, and I can watch the news, like actually watch video footage. There are some days where all I can do, that's my 7th grade science teacher, Susan Rosengrant, who just said homeostasis. See now, I learned something, Susan, and I'm still using it today.
Love it.
But there are some days when all I can do is like scan the print headlines.
Right.
Just to get a quick glimpse of what is there anything that's really enormous that I need to be aware of.
Right. Like, are the bombs going off yet? It's down the street. Right.
And I do that in part because I want to know, but I also do it as a matter of ministry.
Right.
That in order to be able to spiritually energetically hold folks in this time, I want to know what we're all bouncing off of, or what's the atmosphere, the climate
Yes.
that we're in,
Yes.
because we feel it. Even if you don't watch the news, read the headlines, we're all connected. We're going to feel it, right?
Yes.
The question is, one, how do we be mindful and intentional about the direct exposure to the trauma
Right.
versus simple information? There's a difference between doom scrolling, horrific videos, and scanning print headlines. Some days we can do one, some days we can only do the other. Some days we may need to just trust that
Do
it'll
nothing.
be there, it'll be there when we're ready for it. Or somebody
Right.
will tell you,
Right.
if something huge has happened. But whatever we take in, to not just take it in and then it's sitting inside us, right?
Hmm.
But I don't know if folks are familiar with the Buddhist practice Tonglen. It's sometimes translated as taking in and transforming.
Transmuting. Right. Transmuting it.
So in Tonglen, you breathe in the suffering of the world, you
Right.
transmute it, and you breathe
We,
out blessing energy. But I always remind people, it's not that you are the filter and all of that toxic residue then abides in you,
right.
but we then tap into that larger life, right?
Yes.
There is a spirit, there is a source, there is a wholeness, there is a creative love energy everywhere. Whatever, name it whatever you want.
Right.
Many people use God as the
Right.
signifier for that, but to me, it's so much bigger than what any words could ever express
Right.
anyway.
Absolutely.
Breathe that in, right? Let that wash over us and through us. So if we have taken in the suffering of the world as part of a spiritual service in order
Mm.
to pray for and to send healing energy to specific areas of crisis in the world, don't just end with that part.
Right.
Breathe in this larger healing, wholeness, love, beauty, power. Let that wash through us and we send that out. So it's not from us, it's through us. And
Yes.
then we are ministered to as we minister to others
To
and
others.
minister to the world. And so that's
Beautiful.
kind of a renewing practice where we're all in this together, right?
Yes.
Some of us are more directly in the impact of trauma and suffering and crisis. Some of us have the luxury of, nobody's bombing my house and I
Right.
have heat and I have light. Like, that's a
Right.
huge privilege.
Yes, it
And
is.
I am also spiritually connected with the folks who are directly impacted. How
Yes.
can I serve? Yes, I can serve through financial donations, through putting my body in the street, through being of service, and I can also serve spiritually.
Hmm.
What's my intention? So to circle it back to where we began, as you watch the news, what intention are you bringing to it?
Yes.
Are you
Excellent.
are we being just assaulted, or are we coming from that place of empowered agency and responsiveness? And then we say, so how can I most fruitfully respond in this moment? What resources do I have? Inner resources, and what material resources can I leverage in service to transformation?
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm going to go on gallery view now. That's beautiful. Thank you. And call on Karen.
I have a follow-up question about suffering. You had mentioned last time we talked that one of your major teachers is suffering, and mine too, and I did not choose her, but I got her, okay, And I won't go into all the details, but in the past few years, I've been through tremendous suffering. I'm disabled like you are too. And I went through tremendous suffering that resulted in the death of my son. And so I am thinking about, and I find in the midst of it, I grew spiritually. But I'm still trying to figure out how that happened, how it's happening, and how can I accept suffering as a teacher, even though I swear I did not fill out an application to be in this class.
That you remember, right?
Right. I mean,
I sometimes wonder, like, before I incarnated,
right.
What was I thinking? What did I?
I'm thinking about, what do I have the minutes from that meeting that we had, the pre-incarnational meeting? When did I request to have this? And is it too late to change? But at any rate, it is what it is. And suffering is here in my life and a major spiritual teacher. So I wonder if you can say more about having suffering as a teacher and how to live, and not just live with it, but thrive in it.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Whoops! Don't send her away. I'm
She's
talking to her.
right.
Well,
Okay,
I'm
I'll
here. I
highlight.
just muted myself.
No. I just, because you, now I can. You're spotlighted, and I can see you better.
You don't get rid of me that easy.
Okay. And I first want to say I'm deeply sorry about your son. Yeah. I do talk a lot about suffering as a spiritual teacher, not to romanticize it in any way, shape, or form. It is a hard, I'll be delicate, effing teacher, for real. And it's not one that I don't think any of us would ever choose. But it is one that so many of us who are in human bodies, in human lives, experience. It's not a punishment. When I hear faith leaders talk about, well, if you just get right with God, all your suffering, that is spiritual malpractice. Okay? Suffering is inherent in human life. I would say it's part of why we come to this planet, but that might be another conversation. It's a relationship, Karen. So when you say, how can I learn to, dance with it? I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but how can I learn to dance with it in a graceful and fruitful kind of way? I would say the first place to start is to have a dialogue with it. If you've identified, this is, for me, the primary suffering that I write about in the book was an autoimmune disease, is still an autoimmune disease called Crohn's disease. I'm in pretty much a lifelong relationship with that. So I need to be in conversation. I can ask questions and I can listen. Like, okay, what are you trying to teach me right now? What is the spiritual qualities that I need to develop, the practices that will support me? What are you trying to get through my thick head that you need to keep clobbering me? Because obviously I'm a slow learner here in that we're still doing the same thing, right? How can I move through this in a way that is going to yield some spiritual growth, some spiritual capacities, some fruits, some wisdom that then not only benefits me, but especially those of us who are in ministry, but even those of us who are just like have a friend, or have kids or whatever, that we can share some of what we've learned as a gift to others. Not to say this is what their lesson is and they need, right? But to say, when I went through a really hard time, this is something that helped me. And one of the things I learned was, and then you can share that. Have I lost track of your question, Karen? Please help me.
No, I just was putting in the chat because as you're talking, I'm thinking about the words that are coming to me are transforming loss.
Yeah, well, in the book
Because
I
grief
write
is my friend. Yeah,
yeah, in the book I write
that's what
about
I live with.
I write about spiritual aikido, right?
Mm.
Where you take the energy of assault that's coming towards you, and instead of trying to meet it, I'll do it this way, instead of trying to meet it with the opposite force, like I'm going to somehow win, which I'm not going to, right? How do I take that energy, redirect it in a way that is beneficial? So one of the examples I use in the book is that illness kept disabling me to where I literally could not do much of anything physically. And the message was like, just be still, tarry in the spirit. I learned how to work with energy to help, one, first ease the pain in my body, but also then to work with the organs and to work with the cells. I know Chris has been in a certification training as an energy healer. My certification came through, my own practicing on my body. But then I brought that to other people. I worked with clients, right? And I taught classes, and I do this work just, for the larger body of the world. So what was offered as an affliction became an invitation to cultivate a practice that then can be part of how I am in service to others. Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you. That
Thank-
makes total sense. That's very helpful to me.
Good.
It is. Laura,
I thank you so much for that. I want to share a kind of where my struggle is right now. I think some other people might resonate with it. I too have lived with a chronic autoimmune disease that was a source of suffering, and part of the spiritual work I did as a young adult was the way that I, as a teenager and into my young adulthood, dealt with that pain and suffering was to dissociate from my body, we were in a battle, and literally, if you have an autoimmune disease, your body is attacking itself.
Yeah.
And so I was like, screw my body. I'm gonna just be bad to it, and who cares? It's not good to me. And I did a lot of work on being embodied, and it was super healing, and it put me in remission and all of that. But now I find myself in this, and I also think that wounded healer kind of principle that it does when we are able to be with our own suffering, and that it allows us a greater sense of compassion and solidarity. And but the other side of the coin that goes with chronic illness often is depression, and that part of the struggle. And now I'm in a place where I find myself, I'm just being totally raw. I totally want to disembody now. I want to dissociate. I'm like, where's the fugue state? Come and get me, you know? And so it I'm resenting in some ways the work that I did, for 40 years to try to unpack all of that and get to a place where I was embodied. I was feeling my feelings. I was totally grounded and present to the moment, and whatever, good, bad, or otherwise. Now I want to be able to dissociate and escape, and how do we fight that urge and deal with that, like, resentment that, it feels, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but in some ways it does feel like no good deed goes unpunished, and so how do we face a world that is so harsh and violent and disturbing and not want to just retreat to
Right,
somewhere,
right.
yeah. So if you don't mind speaking to that, I would love to hear
No,
what you
no.
have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and it is, it's real on every level. It's real on our personal level when we are experiencing suffering or trauma or abuse, to disassociate. That's how a lot of children survive at all, right? If they're being abused in the home in some way, disassociate, right? And it's also true now in the larger sphere of world events. It is so traumatic in the world. Of course, we want to disconnect from it, right? Of course, we do. The thing is, when we disconnect, we surrender our agency to transform it. And I really think even, whether we go numb because we're really skilled at going numb because we've been doing it our whole life, or whether we go numb through substance use or work or relationship drama, or we're so masterful at finding other things to do besides feel. We really are good at it. If we are trying to be present, in quotes, all by ourselves, just personality, ego, human, me, to hold all of this, whether it's childhood abuse, whether it's genocide, or anything in between. We're not made for that, to hold things by ourselves. Fortunately, I believe, and this is a spiritually rooted organization that's hosting these, so I trust I can, and it's a spiritual book, so I figure if you're here,
Right.
I can use that language. But we are part of something so much larger than just ourselves. But our whole acculturation in modernity is the atomization. It's look out for number one, me against the
Right.
world, all of that stuff. But that's not the spiritual truth. That's something they sell us in order to maintain the control of domination over the larger body of human beings. And it's on full display right now, right? We are going to do everything we can to divide you so that we can intimidate and control you, so we can overwhelm you and make you hide in your house and not dare even post anything online that's in all challenging, because we're monitoring that too, But there's something way more powerful, That is the power of domination, but it's a fake power, right? The power over, that's a fake power. The true power is a spiritual quality. And it is in nature. It is in all of us collectively. It is in the cosmos, in the ancestors. And so the more, whatever practices we can draw on to actually feel and nourish and broaden and deepen our felt connection with that something larger, whatever the something larger is for you, right? And I even, because when I talk with people in not spiritual settings, I offer, nature is something larger than we are, that we can rest in and receive, like the collective. Your comrades, your comrades in the movement is something larger than just you. Singing, that's why folks sing in the streets, because it raises an energy in the collective that is larger, speaking of Dr. King, than Bull Connor and the fire hoses.
Right.
So to me, it's all connected, right? Whether we're talking about our personal struggles and how do we survive that, how do we stay present with ourselves. The other thing about when we don't just abdicate our agency for transformation, but we abdicate our agency for healing our bodies. You know, you have to just presence, Presence. A lot of us have heard about, being present with somebody who's in pain or who's frightened or whatever, and our being present with them, whatever they're feeling, is therapeutic, right? Being present with ourselves, being present with an organ in our body that is ailing, with tenderness. I talk to my organs. Sometimes I'm like, what the fuck do you need? Really, I've been trying. What? But often it's like, honey, I'm so sorry. You're hurting. I know you're having a hard time. Thank you for digesting whatever you can digest and, breathing in as much oxygen as you can. And, I appreciate you're so brave, body. You're so brave. And the more that we can be in loving relationship with everything, including these bodies, including the larger world, and including that, the source, capital S source. I don't know how anybody can navigate a fraction of what we're facing without that. That was a long answer, but I hope that it was helpful.
Thank you so much. That is very, very helpful.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say one thing. I'm sorry I know people have questions, but in regard to that, I think that, I loved your answer. You say in your book, often we are a house divided in our own hearts and minds.
Mm-hmm.
We may want to dedicate ourselves to our highest ideals, but we also want comfort and safety, or to be accepted. Perhaps we feel unworthy or incapable of rising to the demands of our soul's aspirations. We can observe the same dynamic on a larger scale. And, I want to speak to that. Like, I want you to speak to that. Yes, I think that you're right. Like, sometimes we are a house divided, right? And how do we forgive ourselves for that division, right? And how do we then try to, create a unified field?
Practice.
Practice, exactly.
My last answer was ridiculously long, and this one is ridiculously short. But really, that is the best answer.
Yeah.
It takes practice. It's not something we can just understand cognitively and say, oh, okay, it would be more helpful if I did this thing. And then we just turn the switch and all of a sudden we're adept at a different behavior. We have a lifetime of practice doing it the way that we're doing it now.
Right.
And so it just takes first bringing it to mindful intention, right?
Yes.
Like, this is what I'm doing. Actually, I want to do a different thing instead. And so then we just first begin to notice when we catch ourselves doing the thing we don't want to do anymore. And without blame or shame or criticism, we redirect. And at first, it takes a lot of redirecting. Redirecting will be, all the way down the road in the old behavior before we notice that that's where we are. And then we lovingly redirect. But with practice, we habituate to the change that we're seeking to make in our lives, in our responses, in to use, what you lifted up, in being more unanimous within ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Lucella?
Oh, I thought there would have been other people before me.
Now you had your hand up.
I'll just say that over eons and eons, we as humanity have come to a place where we really have been putting out the thought constantly, no pain, no gain, as if that's the only way we can learn. And I think after all of these eons of doing that, that's what we've attracted to ourselves. I mean, true enough, suffering happens, and when suffering happens, the ways in which you've described, Eliza, to address it is really important, and we have to find ways, our internal a resonance and our internal connection with divinity to pull in an understanding of how you deal with suffering. But I think as humanity as a whole, if we can begin to create a bit of a shift where we don't see pain as the way of learning, and we can see whether it be we change that. We can say in joy we learn, or through divine connection we learn. That changes everything. I think we have to find a way over time, more and more of us, to really step away from that business of no pain, no gain. Because as long as we continue to hold to that as the way in which we learn, and it's as if we feel that there's no other option. As long as we continue to hold to that, that's what we bring to ourselves. That's the way in which we're going to continue to learn. And at some point, we have to begin to remove that and recognize that we're not here for pain. We're not really here for suffering. We're here for divine connection. And we have to find ways in which to build that, in which to nurture that, in which to grow that, and in which we make that the way in which we connect, and the way in which we understand ourselves, and the way in which we understand our connection to spirit.
Good
Thank you
stuff.
for that. Thank you. And I just want to make one comment, if I may. I think that no pain, no gain is a cultural thing, not a universal one. So it helps me to remind myself that there are cultures and traditions and people all over the planet, many of whom haven't drunk the same Kool-Aid that we have here in the United States, in quote unquote Western modernity, whatever. That there are folks who never forgot that deeper spiritual connection and who do grow in other ways besides no pain, no gain. So it helps me to feel that larger body consciousness of collective humanity that has a lot of wisdom, a lot of love, a lot of spiritual truth that has been acculturated out of the United Statesian average mindset.
Yes.
So it's not that we have to somehow transform 8 billion people, because not all 8 billion have forgotten that central connection to spirit. You
Good.
I don't know how that's landing with you, Lucella. You look like you're not entirely sure about.
No, you're muted. Lucella, you're muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
No, I think you're right. I think it's probably very much so. I think it's probably more than just a Western thing.
Yeah.
But it's not a worldwide thing. It's true.
Right.
There are people who take a different. The other thing that I think, and I don't know if I'm going to articulate it well, is the other thing I think that's a misnomer that really informs the way in which we live our daily lives is lots and lots. People think that in your that you're connected to divinity, that you being spiritual when you're meditating, and when you involved in these practices. But we are spiritual all the time.
Exactly.
When
Exactly.
we consciously eating our meal, when we find ourselves singing, it's happening all the time. If we were to think like that, we wouldn't have to feel like, oh, we have to go sit somewhere and kneel on a Sunday or whatever.
Right,
And
right.
that's when we're being spiritual. Spiritual is what we are. And
Yes.
if we live that way, then it would change everything. It would change the way in which we attract our realities and we attract our experiences. Because, I mean, as long as we're moving around and interacting with people, the ways in which we interact with people is what allows us to be pulled more into our recognition of and connection with spirit or away
Yes.
from it, you know.
Yes.
Be pulled in anger in terms, you know, in response to something that somebody does. That's one kind of response. When we recognize, oh, she's probably having a bad day, and we can bring compassion to it, that's a whole different kind of response. And it
Yes.
doesn't require meditation. It just requires being
Right.
in the situation and making a choice about how you deal with the situation.
I
Yes.
I could not have said it better, my dear.
Good stuff. Thank you. Pat, I see your hand.
Mhm. Okay.
I just want to take a moment. I number one, I resonated with so much of the book, and for me, it fit a piece in. Something happened to me when I was 18, and it took me 40 years to name it
Mm.
because I was able to dissociate and work around and have other meanings for it, and which means that it put me out of integrity. My body knew that it had been violated, but my mind fought against that.
Mhm.
And so, you know, in realizing and actually naming it, that itself brought some alignment into my being. And I didn't have those words for it until I read your book and realized that when I finally was able to wrap around that, yeah, it was rape. When I was finally able to wrap around that, there was you know, there was an aligning of body and soul.
Mm.
And I thank you for because the words that you had, you know, somehow, you know, just connecting that, and I've done the work, you know, for yes, it really was, and everything else, but just understanding that all that time I was out of alignment
Mm.
because my body knew what had happened,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't let myself be a
Mm.
part of it. And so, you know, thank you for the words.
Thank you so
Wow.
much
Thank
for
you, Pat.
sharing that, Pat. And I don't know if you are feeling this, but I know it's very often when we realize, to use your language, that we've been out of alignment. It's sometimes we judge ourselves for having been out of alignment for so long. And I want to invite anybody in this space who may be feeling that to let it go. You know, we process and integrate trauma when we can, when we're ready. And there is no points off for however long it takes somebody to feel safe enough, equipped enough, you know, before that integration happens. And it also
Mm.
happens in layers. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a one and done, all or nothing. We get a layer, and then if we're lucky, we get a little break. Maybe we think we're done, and then, oh, snap, another layer? Oh, I thought I did that, but there's another layer and another. And that's okay. That's the nature of it. It is not a failure or a shortcoming, however long it takes. So thank you for sharing that. And I have
Thank
to say, I'm looking at you, and behind your head is this incredible cosmos,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's just positioned right there. And I'm like, well, look at that. Isn't that interesting? Here she is, you know. You're part of that.
Yes.
You're connected with that. You emerge out of that. You can call on that. Right? Everybody can.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. There's
Thank you.
wisdom not only in your word, but there's wisdom in the painting behind you.
If I can interject, Liza, in your book, you say In denying the wounds of our historical abuses, we also deny the strengths and learnings that can arise from them.
Yeah.
Unhealed trauma blunts empathy, disinhibits cruelty, and deadens the heart. It can numb us to the ongoing horrors of war, genocide, or ecological catastrophe and lead to the devastating consequences of inaction. The multiple crises of the current age require us to contend with this toxic legacy, whatever our particular location within it might be. And then you go on to talk about those who enact harm and those persecuted by it are both wounded, and the line between the categories of oppressor and oppressed is not absolute. How do we, one of the things that we do in Nurturing Justice, when, we're trying to dismantle the notion that there's a hierarchy of human value based on any difference. And one of the things that we point out in our learning groups is that the level of trauma and generational trauma and even gestational trauma that is experienced by people of European descent in their actions against people of African descent, or their families' actions, or their family, that all down the generational line. Yeah. And I think it's so hard for people to see that, that they look at the oppressed or marginalized class of people and they say, well, that's their problem. And not realizing that it's a deep spiritual malformation and a generational and generational traumatic problem for people of European descent that goes unrecognized, and they're walking around wounded and not even aware that they're wounded. How do we lift it? How do we lift it up? How do we help people to see, especially in this age where any kind of learning about race, racism, historical history and trauma is being erased? When it's this massive denial. Oh no, slavery was a good thing. It was really good. They learned how to read. They learned how to work.
No, they didn't learn how to read because that was
illegal. No, I know, right? But you understand me, like whatever the right.
Yeah, no.
Whatever that narrative is, because it's nonsense to me. But how do we do this?
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that. Right?
Yeah.
The thing that I have to bring myself back to, because the way you're asking it is, how do we impact this huge, centuries-long
problem
trajectory that impacts millions of people, and how do we change them?
I know.
But the good news is, listen, I have been having to come back to this so much lately. It's like, as human beings, we're like cells in a body. Right? No one cell in the body is responsible for the whole thing.
Right.
But it takes the function of each of those cells playing their position in order for the body to stay alive and healthy.
Yeah.
Because people so often say to me, well, I feel like whatever I'm doing isn't enough.
Yeah.
And we all feel that way because it's not enough to change the whole big thing.
Right.
It may be that feeling like we're not enough is something in us urging us to stretch outside our comfort zone and do more. Or it may be just part of that assault of overwhelm that, no, literally nothing we ever do will be enough to really do this. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing whatever we are called to do.
Yeah.
And that each of us, that was something that blew me away. And a lot of, I wrote the book, but I learned so much writing it because I would be wrestling with something and I would ask a question and often the answer wrote itself. And I was like, wow, that's good. Where did that come from?
Right.
And now I've totally lost my train of thought. It'll come back though. Give me a
It's
second.
okay.
Y'all talk amongst yourselves for a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. So it's the part where I talk about legacy,
Mm,
right? And there were a couple of pieces. That one was something the trees told me about our greatest legacy is contributing our life force to to a larger project basically than just ourselves, which is
yes,
part of my answer to your question, right? The other is that we have no way of knowing what our impact is
that's true.
while we're in the middle of living our lives. Once in a while, we get good feedback. Like I came on here tonight and some people said, wow, your book really touched me. That feels good. I feel like, okay, I had some impact, right?
Right.
But so often we touch somebody's life in a way that we might not even realize that we're doing.
Yes.
And it shifts something for them that lets them show up in a way that shifts something for somebody else, that
Mm-hmm.
shifts something for somebody else, and the ripples of impact that we will never see or know about, but
Right.
that can be pivotal. If you think about, this was a metaphor that I really love. You know, if you're navigating a ship or a spacecraft and you want to get from point A to point B, it's not a straight line, right?
Right.
It depends on what the trajectory is, and you have to continually be tacking, right? So if you are off even by the tiniest degree,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a big deal where you are, but carried forth over time, you end up in a completely different place. So if we impact somebody at the fulcrum, even just a fraction, over
Mhm.
time, where that trajectory ends up
Yeah, we don't know.
is a completely different place. And it
Yes.
seems insignificant at that moment, right? How many times do we think about, like I said before, my seventh grade science teacher's on here. We were actually friends back then, but we, reconnected and are in one another's lives. Like, how cool is that, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
But we talk about the person or the event or the coincidence that changed our life, right? And usually it's something small.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So all we can do is be clear on our intent to be of service, be clear on our intent to have the greatest possible impact for good in these times, and to live our lives as consciously as we can with that intent as our compass. Like, that's literally my prayer every day.
Yes.
Let me have the greatest possible impact for good. And whatever that means. And some days it's something I write. Some days it's somebody I counsel. Some days it's, just
Yep.
talking to the person who's walking their dog when I walk down my street. You know? I mean,
Right.
there is no, we are not in a position to judge what is valuable or worthy.
Very good.
We are a cell in a larger body, and all of us together. If one person in Minneapolis went out in the street, it wouldn't be a big deal. But 10,000 people in the street in Minneapolis, and then a whole bunch who are getting food to people who can't leave their houses, or walking the kids to school, or paying the rent for somebody who can't work because they're afraid they'll get picked up. All of those things, some of which we see, some of which we never will see,
Right.
collectively have an impact.
Thank you for saying that because Susan, I see your hand and I want you to hold, if you don't mind, hold your question. So I want to just do a pause for the cause because you said something, you mentioned Minneapolis, and yesterday I was talking to a friend and I'm like, I really was going to wake up this morning and do some research about what organization I wanted to contribute to in Minneapolis that's doing the work on the ground with respect to what's happening there and with ICE. And this morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, I get an email from a friend of mine, a clergy friend of mine, who said that who asking for prayer, saying that she was going to Minneapolis tomorrow night to stand in solidarity. And so I asked her the name of the organization. The name of the organization is Multi-Faith. Of course, I lost it, but it's the Multi-Faith Anti-Racism Community of Healing. And they're rallying, and they've called a bunch of clergy to, and multi-faith activists and so forth to Minneapolis to stand in solidarity with the citizens there. So I said, I'm not going to go to Minneapolis in the freezing cold. I know me, it's not going to happen. But what I will do is Nurturing Justice will make a donation to this organization to support others who are going. So any donation that you have for Nurturing Justice is going to tonight, and I'm going to put up the giving screen if you give me 1 second, is going to go to this organization to support the boots on the ground in Minneapolis. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share.
And if somebody is adept enough to do a quick search of that org and put their direct link in the chat, that would be nice. I see a request for that.
But all donations will go, anything given to Nurturing Justice tonight or tomorrow morning will go, thank you, to this organization. That is my absolute assurance. So this, I'm going to tell you about the Transformational Remnant in a second, but this is the giving link. And this is our campaign to help those people. It's a mutual aid campaign, essentially, to help the people who are doing the work on the ground. So if you just put your phone to this and take a picture of this QR code, it'll lead you to the donation link. And anything that comes in, I get donation reports immediately, and then it'll go directly to this organization. It's called marchminnesota.org. So if you want to make a direct donation, you could do that as well. But we would appreciate the donation coming from Nurturing Justice, since this just dropped in my spirit this morning. So the other thing I want to tell you about, and this is important, is that we have a spiritual community called the Transformational Remnant, and it meets on the second Thursday of every month. I'm going to put the Zoom link in the chat, but please feel free to join us. We are 7 o'clock Eastern time every second Thursday. And we just talk about like the larger issues that we're talking about today. We'll unpack fear, but we're there to give each other spiritual support and resilience and to build community. So we would love for you to join us. And I'm going to now put that consistent Zoom link in the chat, the second Thursday of every month.
And Chris, I believe you're going to send a follow-up email to folks.
Yes,
who
I
are
will.
here tonight that'll include that as well. So
Yes.
It becomes a place where you can find the awe that you talked about in your book, because those moments of awe, are so life-saving.
They are. Awe is powerful soul medicine.
Thank you, Pat. By the way, I want to acknowledge, before I call on you, Susan, I want to acknowledge my consistent Nurturing Justice's consistent supporters and board members. Reverend Dr. Ruby Wilson, who is a co-host and who is my pastor, is the chief operating officer of Nurturing Justice, and she's here with us. Reverend Ruby, will you? Thank you. Reverend Laura McLeod is our chief facilitator and is my partner in crime in the work that we do in educating and in all of these educational events. Pat Dolan serves on our board. And Karen Carlo is one of our major contributors and collaborators and co-conspirators. So, I just want to thank you all for being here. Christine Barlow is my consistent supporter and is always waiting in the wings to help anything nurturing justice. So thank you all for being here. And I know you have questions, but I'm going to call on Susan. Go ahead, Susan.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Just in all fairness here, full disclosure, I have not finished the book yet
It's
because
okay.
my spouse and I no, I want to read it.
Y'all need to have 2 copies in your
You do.
household.
Hey, that's a good idea. Good idea that we can pass along to friends too. But I don't really have a question, but I have a couple stories. I don't know what time you want to end. Was this supposed to end at 8?
No, not necessarily. We're here until nobody has anything more to say, which could be a
Well,
while.
or 8:30, whichever
8:30.
comes
Okay.
first.
Or 8:30, whichever. Okay. Sorry, Liza, because I could keep you all night. I could.
Yeah.
Okay, I have found that I can be a pretty good storyteller, and so I'm going to tell you a personal story that more recently. First of all, I am vertically challenged, and as I get older, I seem to get shorter and shorter, and it seems that they put all the better products in the grocery store much higher than I can reach, even if I hop up. And so I typically look both ways. Where can I find somebody taller than I am to get something for me? And it usually ends up to be a male. Go figure. Um, I usually say this: "Excuse me, would it be a problem, or do you have time to reach something for me up on that shelf?" Oh, sure, sure. It's almost nobody has ever said no. And once they get the the item I'm looking for, I thank them and I offer any services at the lower level that I could reach for that. But one day, recently, there was a young man who came around the corner just as I was going to give up and say, I'm just not getting it this time. And he said, oh, sure. And he said, how many do you want? And I told him just the one. Thank you very much. And I did my little spiel about helping him down any lower item. And he says, no, no, thank you. He said, I was not in a good place. And doing this for you really, really helped me. I was shocked. So there's a simple, these things, the kindnesses that we do, opening a door for someone, carrying something for someone, reaching up and getting an item for a short person. This is, I think, what counts on a daily basis. And I wrote in the messages there that we keep doing it because we might be the 100th monkey. And if people don't know, maybe Liza, you know the story. It's supposedly a scientific fact that monkeys were being observed, and monkeys that were in a hole hundreds of miles away were not doing this particular task. They say it was like washing potatoes that they were going to eat. And when the 100th monkey, doesn't matter what the number is, because in reality it's whatever the optimum spiritual energy is, the other monkeys started picking up their potatoes and washing them. So we must persist. It's not just resist, it's persist. And I have many other stories, but I'm going to stop with just that one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. And what you do when you ask somebody for their assistance and you lovingly thank them is you remind them of their humanity.
Mm.
And
Yes.
part of what enables the violence, whether it is, you know, in a family or between nations, or the violence of racial oppression, is the denial of humanity. We're used to thinking the oppressor is denying the humanity of whoever they're harming. But in order to perpetrate the harm, they have to deny their own humanity, or they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing. So when the simplest act of human kindness is a connector, it awakens and affirms and invites their humanity to wake up. And that was so beautiful, that he was able to recognize that him responding to you shifted him. And so, Chris, to your question about, how do we do this? It is about reawakening
Yes.
our humanity, the humanity in others. And when we are in this opposition, we're denying. It's so much easier to see the humanity of people who are being harmed. And it is really hard to see the humanity like in an ICE agent or in somebody in, the Israeli army, right? Or in the current administration of the United States. That is some hard,
That's a really, really hard.
spiritual work.
It is. Never mind the love component, I mean, seeing the humanity is one thing, but then try to
And
speak love.
and well, and again, we do
That's
what
the hard part.
we do what we can do,
Right.
which makes more room for somebody else to do what they can do, and for our capacity to grow. And but it's those small acts that seem insignificant. Can you help me get this down from the shelf?
Yes.
That actually are transformative. The microcosm and the macrocosm are not separate from each other.
No, they're not.
So it's like a combination of very practical, in the world stuff, and this whole larger, Chris, you mentioned what I said about paradigmatic shift.
Paradigm. Yes.
So, it's everything. There's so much mystery
Yes.
in the universe that
Yes.
we live in. And we inhabit just this tiny slice of the mundane world. But the more we can even just be curious about the mystery, I think it opens up so much more possibility for how we respond, for what's even imagimanable.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, curiosity
Thank
is the
you.
key. Thank you,
Thank you,
Susan, for
Susan.
that. I want to ask Deacon Judy, Reverend Ruby,
Yeah,
Christine.
I'm gonna blow Reverend Ruby's cover, because she said
I know.
beforehand she had a question.
I
And she
know.
was too shy to ask it. So, Sister Ruby, I'm gonna out you, and please share your question. And you could put it in the chat if you don't want to speak. But I think you could.
Take yourself off mute and speak, woman.
Come talk to us, sis.
That's a real shame. Good evening, everyone. Um, I- One, you helped me understand through your book 4 years of seminary training that I didn't know what they were talking about half the time. So thank you for unpacking a lot of things for me. Um, and I want to find this page. I was on it, but you speak about empires. They don't go down without a fight. They don't die easy. But that we're in this shift where they're fighting
Yes.
to hold their place.
Yes.
And you said on page 6, at least that is my hope.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, about that little space of doubt that you put there, and because another part of your writing, I wrote in, well, where does trust come in? Because you said it's natural to be afraid on page 11. And I was asking, well, where does trust come in? And whom do we trust, or what do we trust, so that we can remain hopeful?
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah. Well, I trust in that mystery. I trust in what I call sacred life, sacred wholeness, what many people call God. Yeah, I call it God too sometimes, and then, I have to add a whole bunch else to make it bigger. But I trust in that thing that's larger than I can understand. The life of the infinite cosmos, of the eternality of back to the first ancestor and all the generations yet to come. I gave up thinking I'm going to see the world that I dream of in my lifetime. Now, it'd be a lovely surprise if it happens while I'm here. But this project for collective liberation and awakening began long before any of us got here, and will continue, I suspect, long after we have gone. But I'm so aware of the shoulders I stand on. Sister Ruby, years ago I was complaining to Spirit, as I am wont to do sometimes, about, I have no idea how to fix this. Like, the world is such a mess. I'm overwhelmed. I'm out of my depth. I don't know how to fix this. And Spirit basically said, you don't have to fix it. Just be shoulders. You stand on the shoulders of those who came before you. Be good shoulders for those that are coming up now, coming up behind. And it's like, I could do that. I could be shoulders. I know how to be good shoulders, and that's our job, is just to be good shoulders, to lay our bricks for the layer that we're on here. We're not going to finish the edifice, right?
Yeah.
In terms of at least that's my hope, that's me being honest. This is not, I had a therapist back, 30, 40 years ago when I was living in North Carolina. And she said something to the effect of, she was acknowledging how her style as a therapist had changed. She says, I used to just hand out M&Ms at the gates to hell. Like, here's some M&Ms, it's all sweet and good, and what good is that going to do you, some M&Ms in hell? And so I'm not handing out M&Ms in this book, right? The faith and the hope that's in it is hard won, but I'm not fronting like, I'm sure it's all going to be fine. Eventually, but we may literally blow everything up first. I don't know. You said remain hopeful. I would say I have hope, but I'm not sure I'm hopeful. Because we are at a pivotal moment on planet Earth. We are at a pivotal moment in the evolution of human consciousness, right? Right now we're running full tilt toward the edge of a cliff.
Yeah.
There's still hope that we change direction, that enough folks wake up enough that we go, and we, make a little turn before we get to the edge. There's also a chance we go over. And I talk about this in the first chapter of the book, these cycles of destruction and renewal.
Yes.
And that there are traditional cultures whose cultural memory goes back hundreds of thousands of years, who tell us that we've been here before. As humanity, we have destroyed everything and started again several times before. And it's like the universe, Spirit, God is so generous that we got another chance.
Yeah.
you know? And here we are. And how can we live our moment, our opportunity to turn before we go over the cliff to the best of our ability?
I'm trusting in what you said that is so profound. That the wound and the healing are together there,
Yeah, the healing
entwined.
is in the wound. It
And
grows
that
out
the
of the wound.
and that universe that Jesus called the kingdom is in us to dream and reimagine a better world.
Amen.
So, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Yeah.
your writings and
Yeah.
your presence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
so
and you know,
much.
Jesus said that two ways, which I love. He said both the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's all
Right,
around everywhere, and the kingdom of heaven is within you. So
right.
that which is within us is also that which we are within.
I
That
love it.
that's a word.
Thank
That
you.
is
It
a,
is.
That's the
that's a
word.
whole word. That's a whole word. All right, Liza, Dr. Liza, I don't want to keep you much longer. I know that you need your rest. Thank you all for being here. Are there any last minute questions, comments, or threats?
Threats?
It's my little thing that I say, just in case anybody's got any threats, you know. I love you all so much. Dr. Liza, thank you
Love
so
you.
much. I'll be sending out an email with some more information. Join us for the Transformational Remnant, the second Thursday of every month. I put if you save the chat, and I'll send out an email as well. You're welcome. And on Friday nights with the same link, we have a 30-minute where people pop in and they just say, I dream a world where, and they articulate, we're giving voice to our dreams for a new world. So you can use that same link for Transformational Remnant, which I'll send out in the morning again. And just join us. Come be part of this community. We really invite you to be part of the Nurturing Justice community. We have more presentations like this. Of course, not nearly as delicious as Dr. Liza's work, which I
Hmm.
suggest if you haven't read it, I suggest strongly that you get it and keep it. It is a reference manual for such a time as this, and we will be needing it. Trust me. Okay?
Nurturing Justice is the cool kids.
We're the cool kids. Right.
Yeah, we're the cool kids. Come hang with us. We're the cool kids.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liza. Love you so much. It was really great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you, Chris, for all of your hard work, and thank you to everybody who's here. And thank you all for whatever you're doing in the world within you and the world of your relationships with others. Even when you don't feel like it's enough, trust that you make a difference. I really
Yes.
believe that if you are on the planet now, at this time, this is not like a casual, let me just stop by Earth and have an incarnation, maybe it'll be
Right.
fun.
No.
This is a hefty time. And if
Yes.
your soul chose to be here now, you are here on purpose, with purpose, and you make a difference. I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Thank you for that.
Amen.
Amen. Love you guys. Blessings.
Thank you. Many blessings to all. Take care.
Many
Have a good
blessings.
Good
evening.
Thanks,
night,
Debbie. Thanks for
everybody.
being here.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Bye.
Liza.
Go
Thank you,
on,
Chris. Thank you,
Kathy.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.